Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. What is a friend? A single soul dwelling in two bodies. Hope is a walking dream. Quality is not an act, it is a habit. The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. He who is unable to live in society or who has no need because he is sufficient for himself must be either a beast or a god. At his best, man is the noblest of all animals. Separated from law and justice, he is the worst. Change in all things is sweet. Criticism is something we can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. Dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in deserving them. Happiness depends upon ourselves. No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. A friend to all is a friend to none. Wishing to be friends is quick work, but friendship is a slow ripening fruit. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. To perceive is to suffer. He who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Those who know do, those that understand teach. Poverty is the parent of revolution and crime. It is not enough to win a war. It is more important to organize the peace. The antidote for 50 enemies is one friend. Player in the job puts perfection in the work. To write well, express yourself like the common people, but think like a wise man. Learning is not child's play. We cannot learn without pain. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. The more you know you don't know. It is not always the same thing to be a good man and a good citizen. The energy of the mind is the essence of life. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. He who cannot be a good follower cannot be a good leader. Without friends, no one would want to live, even if he had all other goods. Wit is educated insolence. All men by nature desire to know. Nature does nothing uselessly. All paid jobs absorb and degrade the mind. Wise men speak when they have something to say. Fools speak because they have to say something. Where your talents and the need of the world cross, there lies your vacation. Misfortune shows those who are not really friends. Happiness is a state of activity. Through discipline comes freedom. The secret to humor is surprise. Great men are always of a nature originally melancholy. Fear is a pain arising from the anticipation of evil. We make war that we may live in peace. A friend is a second self. In all things of nature, there is something of the marvelous. There never was a time when there was not motion. Identity exists where the complication and unraveling are the same. The most perfect a nature is, the fewer means it requires for its operation. Be a free thinker and don't accept everything you hear as truth. Be critical and evaluate what you believe in. Ordinary people do this either at random or through practice and from acquired habit. State comes into being for the sake of living, but it exists for the sake of living well. Excellence was never an accident. The excellent outcomes were the wise choice of many alternatives. Bashfulness is an ornament to youth, but a reproach to old age. 95% of everything you do is the result of habit. Radicalism is a luxury of stability because only when we have everything under control can we dare to change things. Every tragedy falls into two parts: complications and unraveling or denouement. The objects the imitator represents are actions. A vowel is that which, without impact of tongue or lip, has an audible sound. Memories of emotional events are stamped on running water. Happiness belongs to those who suffice themselves. On imagination, that in virtue of which an image occurs in us. The avarice of mankind is insatiable. Quality is not an act, it is habit. The ideal man bears the accidents of life with dignity and grace, making the best of circumstances. Death is evil, so the gods decided, otherwise they would die. Happiness extends just as far as study extends, and the more someone studies, the happier he is. Be considered as still belonging to the introduction. Whatever creates or increases happiness, or some part of happiness, we ought to do. Whatever destroys or hampers happiness, or give rise to its opposite, we ought not to do. To theirs the primary question was not what do we know, but how do we know it. All those who have become eminent in philosophy, or politics, or poetry, or the arts are clearly melancholists. This is the main question: with what activity one's layer is filled. Freedom is a property of the will, which is realized through truth. Freedom is given to man as a task to be accomplished. Think as the wise men think, but talk like the simple people do. It is in justice that the ordering of society is centered. Tolerance is the last virtue of a dying society. What we have to learn to do. We learn by doing. Happiness is the exercise of talent along the lines of excellence. By a male animal we mean that which generates in another, and by a female that which generates in itself. The worst thing about slavery is that the slaves eventually get to like it. Learning begins at the level of the learner. The thing about which we inquire are equal in number to the things we understand. The end of labor is to gain leisure. Anyone who has no need of anybody but himself is either a beast or a god. Cruel is the strife of brothers. Men were first led to the study of philosophy, as indeed they are today, by wonder. Every word is either current or strange, or a metaphorical or ornamental, or newly coined, or lengthened or contracted or altered. Bad men who are too weak for toil are in love with death. Man, if perfected, is the best of all animals, but when isolated, he is the worst of all. I say that habits but a long practice, friend, and this becomes man's nature in the end. Confidence is characteristic of a person of hope. Even when the laws have been written down, they ought not always remain unchanged. But to die to escape from poverty or love or anything painful is not the mark of a brave man, but rather of a coward. And generally speaking, all things are good which men deliberately choose to do. It seems impossible for all things to be one. Why is that all those who have become eminent in philosophy or politics or poetry or the arts are clearly melancholies? Correct habitation distinguishes a good political system from a bad one. Being will not have its magnitude if it is a substance, for each of the two parts must be in a different sense. For we are noble in only one way, but bad in all sorts of ways. Education is the best provision for old age.